Hey everyone, it's Matt Krevin with Talk Shop. Excited to bring you another segment of my Industry Insider series. Today, I'm happy to be joined by Kendra O'Donoghue. Kendra, first of all, thank you for taking the time. And second of all, would you mind doing me the duty of actually just explaining your role and who you work with, and maybe just a brief overview of what you do?
Yeah, of course. So hello, Kendra O'Donoghue. Currently, I serve as the Chief Advancement and Impact Officer for Mayor Sam Liccardo in the city of San Jose. It's a very lengthy title, but essentially what it means is that I really support the sustainability and impact of key mayoral initiatives, and really try to focus on how can we scale them to support larger communities within a city of over 1 million residents.
Great. And I know you and I, our business relationship rather, started really relatively recently, within the last year to two at the most.
Mhm.
And it was with your a previous company. I can announce them or I cannot announce who it is. I don't. It's
Go
not
go for it.
that good.
I still sit on the board, so would love to plug them as well.
But with Juma,
Yes,
Juma, for those of you that want to take a look. And is it Juma.org? Is that their site?
it is.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not here to promote them, but I also want to share that's how you and I met. And that
Right.
organization does wonderful things, just like you're doing wonderful things now. But a big part of that was you dealing with the community at large, and maybe the
Yes,
emerging adult community at large. So I thought you'd be a
exactly.
perfect guest just to share some insight from what you've seen through your eyes, but also maybe what you've experienced yourself. So that kind of being the case, knowing that the people that listen to this are really looking for insight as they are on the front end of launching their careers. When
Right.
did you realize speaking clearly, confidently, concisely, or being able to communicate effectively to a wide variety of people was important? When did that first dawn on you?
I would say it really maybe truly hit home once I was in college. I went to school to pursue a career in broadcast journalism. I am obviously not a broadcast journalist. It was slightly inconvenient for me to figure that out probably a couple weeks after I graduated. So I'm sitting there with this lovely bachelor's degree that I have invested many student loan dollars in securing, and figured out actually I don't want to travel around um, and be a newscaster, reporter. But I also realized that the thing that I loved about broadcast journalism was being able to speak on behalf of others, and to tell a story and to tell it in a way that really resonated. So I think that's when I found my passion, but also realized that that was a skill that I needed to continue to foster and a muscle I needed to continue to flex.
Absolutely. The next question I want to ask you about you personally first, and then I'm going to ask the same two-part question about maybe what you've seen from today's young adults. But the first
Okay.
question is really for you. When you were networking yourself into whatever it is, maybe it was your first job, you could use Juma or could use your
Hmm.
current role. When you were ideally networking and then ultimately interviewing, maybe there were a few things that you wish you could have done differently. Maybe some things code for I could learn from this, or
Hmm.
things that you've done successfully that moved you along in the process. Whatever you're willing to share on both parts of those questions, again, with the goal of just sharing some insight, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so I would say with this role in particular, because it definitely took me a little while, throughout my career to kind of zero in on the role that I really wanted to have, which is ultimately what I'm doing. And I think I found the importance of networking in that when you build up your brand, um, that brand extends beyond an interview, right? There's a Jeff Bezos quote that I used to tell you fairly often when I was at Juma, which is, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's, so much of why networking and relationship development and partnership development are really critical, because yes, you can pitch yourself in an hour-long interview, but then you have to think, once you walk out of the room, they're going to continue to talk about you, and what are they going to say? And so, that's, I think, something I've learned over the years. I've really tried to continue to be cognizant of. I think on the flip side, something that I learned the hard way, and this was a couple of roles ago, is that similarly, it's really useful to go into an interview not just trying to pitch yourself, but also trying to figure out, is this company the right fit for me? And so, in a way, kind of interviewing the interviewer, because I definitely have taken on a role simply because it was available. and it made sense, but not necessarily because it was a good culture fit. It ended up being a little bit of like a palate cleanser job. And so thinking about that now, and something I try to really suggest to anyone else who's doing kind of mock interviews or interview prep, go in with a couple of questions that you want to ask them to give yourself a good idea. Is this the place that I want to be at? Is this the team that makes sense for me?
I love both the points. The Jeff Bezos quote is great. It's totally spot on and great guidance for someone to maybe just kind of have in your back pocket as you go in. And then also the other key word that I heard, and I don't want to put words back in your mouth, but I think you said the word relationship development. And I always stress when I'm working with my coaching clients, which are college students, is the easy part is to acquire your network. How do you foster and nurture them along the way? When that way you can go back and have the right to ask them for guidance. So I appreciate you making that comment, because I completely, wholeheartedly agree. Let's flip that to, again, I can use Juma as an example for me, knowing you, but you know yourself better. Maybe there's some examples that you can share from maybe college students that have reached out to you, Juma, somewhere else, or in your current role, whether it was networking or whatever the case might have been, but they were looking to you for some advice, career-related advice, or an interview. Two-part question again, something that you saw that, what, man, I wish this student or wish this person would have done it a little bit differently. And then conversely, what worked well?
Yeah, so I think what we would often see with a lot of the youth that we worked with at Juma, and these youth are 16 to 24. So for them, it could be going into an interview for job number 1 or job number 10. That's a pretty wide range in age. And this kind of commonality of kind of this defeatist attitude right from the beginning of, I'm applying for this job and I go into the waiting room and there's like 20 other people. So, how on earth am I going to compare myself to 20 other people? And really trying to kind of implore them to see, you're not in comparison to everyone else. It's simply how you are presenting the best version of yourself in those 30, 45, 60 minutes that you have. And almost going in, and less so of this kind of quiz atmosphere, which tends to be what interviews feel like, right? Like an interrogation or a quiz. I'm just going to rattle off questions and you're going to answer them. But I would say try and make it more of a conversation. It's almost like networking in person. Can you find common ground? Can you find something that you all have in common? Because then when you do leave the room and they see 10 more applicants, they're still probably going to remember you because you guys had, that moment where you're able to maybe bond over something. And then the other thing too, again, is going back to, don't simply take an opportunity just because it's presented to you, but really be intentional about it. In the current, job climate and opportunity climate, we do see people that definitely lateral to a lot of different roles now within, every couple years. And that's the norm now, as opposed to someone who, got a job when they were 22 and retired from that same company at 65. And so while it's the norm to really, kind of look at, okay, what's my next step? To just be really aware of, am I taking this role because it's here, it was, presented to me, or is it because it's going to help advance my career? It's going to help me gain new skills. It's going to help me, continue on this upward trajectory. And right now, just with, the world the way that it is, I think it's easy to just say, oh, someone offered me a job, I'm going to go ahead and take it because it's the only option. So we try and do a lot of that, of kind of thinking through the reasons behind why we want to pursue something, not just for the sake of the pursuit.
All really great advice right there. You mentioned a few things, and maybe it was a question or two ago, but it just now popped back to my head because it's worthwhile me kind of doing a quick follow-up in the interview itself. Look, it's a dance, but you made a very good point, and I actually stress this to people I work with as well, and that is make it conversational. Don't just wait to be to ask, or rather to answer questions.
Yeah.
And in a way, if you can, even on the way down to the conference room or to the room that you're meeting, it's just strike up a conversation to loosen yourself up just a little bit, and it builds the rapport, it breaks the ice. Then you go in wherever you're ultimately going to sit down. If it's a one-on-one or a panel, then at least you've already gotten something off your chest in a way. I don't know if you've seen that or if that works, but look, natural nerves are just that. It's natural. And if you don't have that fire in your gut, then probably something is wrong.
Yeah.
Buried in there is a question, minus all the nerves that you see from a young adult. That's normal. Any tips and guidance outside of them asking questions to you that you've seen work? Because it can be a pretty daunting time that first time you go through a live interview process.
Very true. I think authenticity is something that really, is really something that can, I think, stick with an interviewer. So admitting that you're a little nervous, that's okay, right? Kind of showing that vulnerability. I've absolutely had situations where, I've been interviewing someone and it starts off a little rocky. And I know I'm not getting potentially the best version of themselves, and they have notes here and you can tell they're just frazzled in that moment. And so taking a little bit of a step back and saying, tell me about yourself. What do you do when you're not working, and just kind of letting them get back to baseline. And so if that is needed, that's okay. If you need to use water as a little bit of a stall tactic, take a drink, center yourself. Because this whole kind of vibe of, I need to be on, I need to act a certain way, that might help in the interview. But if you get the job, you still have to show up on day one. And you don't want to be kind of playing a part or maintaining a facade for, the 5 years that you work there. You want to be able to truly be yourself. So.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm in complete concert, but I am with almost everything you're saying, because it's a really, I don't want to say a tricky balance, or it's a dance. It should be two-way. It should be conversational. Yes, going to be the best version of yourself. I always also add, and tell me what your thoughts are on this particular piece of it, is don't just, look and search so hard to answer the question just the way you think that person wants to hear it. Answer it from how you truly feel. Because like you said, you just mentioned it, they have to show up from day one. And if it's not the same version that you were in the interview, something's going to be completely off balance right from jump. So anyway, I'm not sure if maybe I'm just making a statement. That wasn't a question necessarily.
But absolutely true. Same goes for a resume. Don't claim that you can, that you're the IT guru if you, barely know how to do Excel. Like, it's okay to just be you, and to not overpromise, because then you might underdeliver.
Gut reaction to the following question. The most creative way that someone's approached you, whether they're looking to network, whether they're looking to meet with you, whatever the case might be, what's the most creative way that jumped out to you?
The most creative way. Keyword is creative, because I've had some that have been a little aggressive.
And if you want, and by the way, Kendra, as you're kind of just taking a sip of water because you're so nervous for my heavy hitting questions that I'm asking.
Yes.
No, if you want to take a minute. And again, I'm all about sharing to the college students and the high school kids too. Look, if there's learning by process of elimination is okay too. If there isn't anything that jumps out in terms of, someone really approached me in a really unique way that was cool, maybe there was a way, or maybe there's some ways not to do that. You just mentioned, hey, some people come after me pretty aggressively. That's not going to work for you. So you can answer that way too, because that's an okay way to learn.
True.
Or we should just move on. The question. I can move to the next one.
Actually, something just sparked a memory. And this is so when I was I started my career as a teacher, and then I shifted into nonprofit for a nonprofit called Reading Partners, which is a national literacy organization. And so I had to interview candidates who wanted to become AmeriCorps members, who were often, 18 to maybe 24 years old on average. And this was probably going to be kind of their first, really big job. And so I had some folks who would come in fully suited up, with practically like laminated versions of resumes, which I always thought was really endearing, because that wasn't necessary, but very endearing that they took it so seriously. But I remember there were a couple of folks who took the time to send a thank you card after the interview. And one person even sent a card that was handmade, bedazzled, glitter all over the place. I pull it out of the envelope and glitter just completely engulfs my desk, which was creative, a little messy and slightly irritating in the moment because I had to clean it up. But it was just something that really struck with me. And I actually kept the card for years. I had it pinned up behind my desk. until I think somehow I lost track of it a couple years ago. And so it was one of those things that, again, it goes back to brand, right? That became kind of part of their personal brand, and something that I remembered, years and years and years later to today.
Thank you notes, handwritten is a lost art. Everyone's inbox is so cluttered. I know when I get handwritten notes, it jumps out. It just jumps off the page. It just does. So
It does.
great tip. I always like to wrap up my interviews with this question. We've kind of touched around it, but now I'm going to ask you something maybe a little more specific. And again, I really enjoy wrapping up this with this question to hopefully, again, give some insight to the next generation is, what is it that captures your attention? So let me be a little more specific. Someone's networking with you. It's almost in the same way I'm asking it, repeating it, maybe in a different way, not just what's the most creative way, but just in general, when someone's got the chance to meet with you face to face, what captures your attention?
I would say their energy. I really like to feed off of other people's energy. And I can generally tell when it's also coming from a place of authenticity. And so when I can ask someone about, what is it about the work that we are, collectively involved with, that gets you excited, and you just kind of immediately see like their shoulders kind of straighten up. It's like an immediate sense of kind of confidence and empowerment, because they're about to tell you something that they are so deeply aligned and passionate about, that at that point, I know, I'll be happy to mentor them. I'll be happy to make connections for them, whatever it is I can do, because that's really what we need more of, especially in kind of the space that I sit in, which is, education, youth, workforce development. It's difficult work. And so we need people who are truly invested and all in. So it's aspects of that, because I've also had the flip side where I've had people during networking events or job fairs. And on the flip side, when you hear apathy coming from someone or just a general disinterest, that is kind of an immediate red flag to me of, this person is not likely going to invest the time in this potential, relationship that we could be building right now. I will likely only be an acquaintance of them. I'll be a connection on LinkedIn, but likely nothing beyond that, because they're not able to fully engage in the moment. So I think that's something, again, that goes back to the ability to communicate, because you need to be able to, look someone in the eye, and even if it's just in a 5-minute window, speak to, what your business is, and why you want to do it and how you want to do that. Because otherwise, the networking, it's just, it really is just kind of LinkedIn connections then, right? And there's nothing that can go beyond that.
And that's exactly, in a shameless plug, it's exactly why Talk Shop is here, to help this age, help this generation be clear and confident in the way they communicate effectively to a wide variety of people when it comes to getting their career off the ground. So Kendra O'Donoghue, appreciate you taking the time to sharing some great insight. Is there any blog, website, company website that you would like to put out there for people to, whether it's you, yourself, or the company, the city, anything you'd like to plug? Please, I want to make sure you have the opportunity to share anything that you would like to share as it relates to that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. For anyone local in the Bay Area, feel free to visit SiliconValleyStrong.org. It's really a hub of resources, ways to get involved, volunteer during these really kind of critical and difficult times. Again, I still sit on the local advisory board for my previous organization, which is Juma.org, an amazing organization. Please feel free to check that out. And then, lastly, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn.
All good things. Yeah, no, absolutely. You just mentioned one thing. Sorry, I thought the interview was over, but now I can't resist, because volunteering is such a key to getting some practical experience, to getting people to write testimonials for you, to endorse you. So for those that want an interview, or at least get some volunteer experience, I would check out those websites, because that is a fantastic way to just jumpstart your whole life in a way. So Kendra, I appreciate it. And for anyone that's watching this on my Facebook Talk Shop page or on the LinkedIn page, if you like it, I think there's some great insight that you can share. Please do just that. Go ahead and share the video out. That's what it's all about. So again, Kendra, thank you so much for taking some time, and look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate it.